to Councilmember White.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you all. I have a long opening statement, but I'll forego that because I'm in between this hearing and Human Services hearing. But I want to go back, Chancellor, to your testimony and try to get some clarity on some things of where we're going in the future with DCPS. You said in your testimony that DCPS has seen students' outcomes and enrollment improve year after year for decades. As we know, and the conversation has been redundant, that's not true for boys of color in the district. What is our goal, and how are we going to ensure that we're moving the young boys of color along this trajectory as well as the other students?
So to ensure that our males of colors are supported well, we are continuing to invest in our intensive supports and programmings that are specifically targeting our males of color. We continue to invest and ensure that students that are served at
What programs specifically are you talking about, intensive supports and programs?
We have our Males of Color initiative that provides supports directly to young men across the district. We also have our RAIN program, which is our program that is targeted towards our young ladies of color as well.
So how do young men that are highest risk, truant, involved in all types of behavior issues, and approach or enrolled into this Men of Color initiative? How do they get into how we track them?
Yeah, so we receive recommendations from school-based staff where students may need additional support, but I believe most importantly, our school-wide interventions are where we can be the most helpful in supporting our males of color. There's intensive professional development for school-based staff on how we do that. In addition, we are very much so focused on our schools that have struggled historically with student outcomes, particularly schools that have a significant number of students of color. And this budget represents investments in our connected schools model that will support 8 schools that will provide additional supports for the students and their families that are heavily targeted towards our students of color. And then we're also making historic investments in our Anacostia and Baloo feeder patterns to ensure that there are additional academic supports and also redesign of our academic model to better meet the needs of those students in those communities. We also prioritize hiring of educators of color. We are a leader nationally with a number of males of color that support our students, and so we want to ensure that we are leveraging the research that we know is out there as it relates to having males of color in our schools supporting our students. And we've actually, I'm really pleased that we're starting to see fruit bear from a model where we have paraprofessionals that are in our early childhood education setting that are targeting males of color with our youngest learners as well.
Thank you. And I'll ask additional questions related to that later. But you also stated DCPS is committed to transparent and equitable budgeting. But as you've seen in Ward 8, we're experiencing a $10.4 million decrease in Ward 8 funding for schools. And I wanted to know from you, I've been in and out of this hearing, on how we plan on, going beyond this projected enrollment to ensuring that these schools get what they need. And I say this because I guess about 2 to 3 years ago, Baloo's enrollment was about 900, right? And now they're about less than 500. And so the more we divest in the school, the more parents are more apprehensive and reluctant to send their school to a school that the government or DPS don't even believe in putting more money into. This is perception. I don't know if most parents don't actually may not know how the formula works, may or may not, but just the continual divestment into the school will be a barrier to parents wanting to send their child to that school. So how are we using promotional materials, more programming, something to draw the parents and students in the school to ensure that we are putting the investment into the school and building it up when we see the enrollment decreasing?
So Councilmember White, you're spot on with your comments around what families want in programming. And so as we have surveyed our families and asked the tough questions around the lack of confidence in some of the schools where we're seeing dramatic declines in enrollment, Programming is a theme that we've heard over and over again. And so, as you've highlighted in the past, providing additional funding to the schools have not yielded increased enrollment. It actually has been a situation where we've seen steady decline in enrollment. So this budget represents investments outside of the school budget that are specifically targeting programming. We've heard in many cases that we should have more career explorations in our middle schools, more rigorous curriculum in our middle schools, and at the high school level, there's been significant interest in advancing our career pathways and career technical education. And we're in the process with many of those schools redesigning to meet those needs and be responsive to those requests.
Thank you. And I want to note that one of the things that I did see was that the principals at Anacostia and Ballou actually are from the community. Actually, as you know, the principal of Ballou actually graduated from Ballou. And I think that even in that, there still has to be some more additional wraparound services, because I'm noticing even at Anacostia, the enrollment is decreasing. And I don't know, and we plan on doing some things throughout the summer, because we know traditionally in Ward 8, even with enrollment, parents are doing enrollment late, which affects enrollment data and which affects the budget. So if we know there's a 0.1% to 3% difference in enrollment, what does DCPS do to right size that through the school year to ensure that they have the equitable resource that we talked about during this formula?
And so there's an enrollment reserve that we're required to have by law. And there's currently $6 million in that reserve where we allocate additional resources to schools should there be any shifts in enrollment or needs over the spring and the summer in the school year to ensure that those schools are served well. In addition to that, we have many investments that are outside of the school budget that are in process now. You've highlighted the leadership of the two principals. They are now leading engagement and partnership with DCPS to reprogram the schools and add additional options for students and families that we believe will be attractive, in addition to our traditional marketing and communication. So that actually a enrollment event this weekend, and we'll continue to promote enrollment throughout the spring and summer. Again, should we see any major shifts in enrollment, we'll ensure that schools receive the appropriate resources.
So is there another audit done at some point to figure out where you are not here, we project you to be here, and then there's more money in future to school? And if so, when does that take place?
Yes, so we have ongoing monitoring of enrollment to ensure that students are staffed, schools are staffed appropriately. Dr. Mestera can speak to some of the details in terms of how we monitor enrollment over time, but it is something that we do track.
Thank you, Chancellor. As the Chancellor spoke to we do watch enrollment trends closely over the spring and summer, and that enrollment reserve fund is put aside specifically to address those fluctuations and make sure that if schools receive more students than anticipated, they are not expected to take from their own budget to create those additional staff positions. So we layer those staff positions on top.
When does that happen?
That happens throughout the spring, summer, and so into the fall as we're looking at the trends of where students are landing. As you know, the annual audit, the official audit of the count is in October. So essentially from now through to October, we're monitoring those trends. I also, if I could, just would like to speak to your previous question, which I think, as the Chancellor said, is spot on about how are we providing wraparound supports to Anacostia and Ballou. And I think this redesign model that we've been speaking to is really critical to getting at the right services and resources for schools.
What exactly is the redesign model?
Thank you.
I don't know what it is.
Yes, thank you for asking. So the redesign model is a model where we are working with the school community. And I think the significant piece to me and the exciting piece is that students are very much at the center of the planning process and providing input on what they think needs to change and what they want to see in their schools that would be different. So student voice is really critical to the work. We've been doing a very deep needs assessment with each community.
So there's meetings happening with students now?
Yes.
Is it
over the past
group
several
of students?
excuse me, Yes, students at each school were part of this needs assessment, and they're part of the planning process. We started with a needs assessment several months ago. We've been engaging with the school community of both Anacostia and Ballou to develop an initial plan around interventions. The community drives the plan, and so what we're seeing for Anacostia and Ballou is an interest in academic rigor, additional leadership opportunities for students, and trauma-informed supports, including resiliency-based coaching and support for the adults and for the students, connecting with agency partners in a much more significant way. So we're really excited about the work and the potential that it has, and we see this as a way to really make sure that we're being responsive to what the community is saying is needed.
Thank you. I'm over my time, so we'll reach the next round.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember.